evening, everyone, and welcome to the sports section. Long Island's longest-running call-in sports program. Everybody's going to be slightly delayed tonight because we did, of course, speak to Riley Craig from the softball team, played third base this past season, and we did pre-record the interview earlier in the week because that's all she was available for. So Mike Anderson and I took some time a couple of days ago and spoke to her about past and future. She used her extra year of eligibility this year, and now she's looking ahead. And we spent a little time with her, and we'll share this with you right now.
Okay, well, welcome, everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Mike Anderson. He's Matt Mankiewicz, and joining us tonight is former Stony Brook softball third baseman Riley Craig. How you doing, Riley?
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, we're just fine and dandy, I guess. So, what has the off season been like for you so far? What have you been up to?
Well, after season ended, I stayed at school or at Stony Brook for about a month with all of my housemates, and we were able to just kind of explore New York, Long Island, and it was a blast. And then eventually it was time for me to come home. So I drove cross country by myself. It wasn't too bad. And then I'm working on a golf course right now, but I'm going to start my master's program next fall. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And for somebody who's not here, where do you usually go around Long Island when you quote unquote explore Long Island?
My favorite place is Port Jefferson. I go there every day and not get sick of it.
Of course. How couldn't you? I live there. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
So, and how long of a cross country commute is that? How long a drive?
It's about 36 hours. So it, give or take, but so I went from Stony Brook to Ohio. I have friends who live there, so I stayed one night there. And then from Ohio, I went to Iowa. That took me about 12 hours. That was the long one. And then from Iowa to home was about 8 hours.
Well, we're glad that you got there safely. That's good. And now I got to ask you, so what are your plans regarding softball for the future? Where do you go from here? Are you coming back or are the cleats hanging up?
The cleats are hanging up. I had my 5th year, very thankful that I had it. I wish I could take a 6th year. Sadly, that's not in the pages, but that's all right. Definitely going to stick around the sport, going to do lessons and hopefully coach, some summer ball, maybe high school ball. We'll see, where the road goes.
And so have you been in touch with any of your teammates since the season came to an end back in May? Like, have you spoken to any of them? What's the communication been like?
Yeah, we talk definitely every week. Try to, talk every day. We Snapchat all the time, but we have group messages that, we say hi. And obviously Mel, my former teammate, lives here, so we'll, see each other, but hopefully we'll all get to go to homecoming this year. I know I'm planning on it, so hopefully they'll plan on it too.
That's good. And so I want to, you touched on it briefly, but I just want to ask you, 2020 season gets canceled very early. Now, how relieving was it to find out that you have that option, that 5th year of eligibility to return and have a true senior season? How nice was it to get that second chance?
I could not be more thankful for Sean Hilbrun, our athletic director, our coaches, in the whole athletic department as a whole. They made it happen, and me and everyone else were just so devastated with everything, and it was sad, confusing. No one really understood, but once we, got the news that it was going to happen for sure, it's kind of like indescribable. You don't really have any words. I'm just so thankful that I was able to do that, because I know there were some athletes in our conference who didn't get that chance. So we were very, very fortunate.
Right, absolutely. Now, let's reflect on your career as a Stony Brook Seawolf. So you played here for 5 years, and it's been a rather successful program since you've been here. So what has your experience been like, in your own words, as a Stony Brook Seawolf?
It definitely has started off a little challenging, just trying to get the ropes and everything, but I had my teammates, they always had my back. And I know I fell on them whenever I needed, and it was amazing. I couldn't be more thankful that I chose to go to Stony Brook, and I wish I could, still be out there. I really love it.
Now, we were talking about this obviously just a couple minutes ago, but you're a Midwest girl. You're from Colorado, but you were recruited to play for an East Coast team. How did that happen? How did you get the exposure to reach an East Coast D1 team like Stony Brook?
So I had never heard of Stony Brook before Coach Bryant came to the games. But so funny story, Colorado hosts the biggest softball tournament of the year, basically. It's called the Independence Day Tournament. It's throughout the week of 4th of July. And Coach Bryant was in Colorado recruiting, and she was actually watching the other team when she saw Mel and I, and that was in July. And then she talked to our recruiting coach and got a visit set up for November. And then we went to campus. I loved it. Mel loved it. And then she gave us like a 2-week period to decide, just how it goes. And I knew right away that is where I wanted to be, and I was committed by the end of November, early December. It happened so fast. It was crazy.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. Now, I joined the Statesman, our school paper, during late April, and I actually got to cover you for a couple games this year, in person, on America East TV, whatever. But I got to see a lot of you this year. And one thing that really stands out about you is your exceptional defense at the hot corner. You displayed soft, sure hands and a strong, accurate throwing arm. So how much pride do you take in your defense?
First off, thank you so much. I take a lot of pride in my defense. I owe it all to Coach Bryant. My freshman year, I did extra defense every day before practice. I wanted to be as good as I can, and she pushed me to be the best I could be. And I don't know, it's like something happened in that 5th year, but I just loved every second, it sounds selfish, but every ball I wanted to be hit to me. I just loved it. And I loved the excitement of not knowing whether it's going to be, smash in your face or a bunt or just always being on your toes. It was, I embraced it, and I just loved it.
Is there a little bit of stress that goes into playing the hot corner? Because, you just said you don't know if this ball is going to be bunted at you or smashed right in your face. So when you're a younger player, is it stressful? Are you almost hoping the opposite? Like, hey, I hope this ball is not hit to me? Or what goes through the mind of a third baseman like that, baseball or softball?
You have to read the batter, basically, because there's some times where I'm way back behind the bag, or sometimes I'm halfway up the line. Once you really get comfortable at the position, you get to, read batters and your talents and what you can do. And then you can just, go from there.
Right. Okay.
I wouldn't say I don't think it's stressful personally, but I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I could never play third base, or I think it's scary, but I like it, especially because you don't have time to react. The ball doesn't really take, it obviously can always take a bad hop, but it just gets to you so quickly that you don't have that time to think and, have those mental mistakes, basically.
That's right. Exactly. You're not given a chance to make a mental mistake. Exactly what kind of work did you put in? Was it 100 ground balls a day? What exactly was your process, your practice habits that turned you into such a good third baseman?
Well, we do everyday glove work. And it's so simple, so fundamental, but that's what we do every time we get a ground ball. And so we do that every day. We do little drills like cone drills, where coach will roll us the ball and we'll just focus on mechanics and being soft and smooth. And then we just progress to getting into ground balls. So we we take what we practice and we put it into live situations, basically.
Now, I should have asked you this a couple minutes ago, but what was it like playing for a coach like Megan Bryant?
You know, she believes in all of her players. She has faith in all of us. She pushes us to be the best player, the best person we can be. You know, I definitely would not be the player I am if I didn't play for her and the person. You know, I'm very glad that she was my coach.
So this past year, you had a bit of a difficult season offensively, but your bat came alive at the best possible time. You know, down the stretch, you had an 8-game hitting streak and hit safely in 10 of 11 games from April 28th until the postseason tournament. So what adjustments did you make to get things clicking on the offensive side of the ball?
I went in, you know, after JMU, I mean, I'll be honest, I struggled at JMU when we played. And I was talking to our hitting coach, and she was just like, you need to put in the extra work. And so I would go hit with her basically every morning, you know. And obviously it paid off at the end, and that's what we were hoping. And just, you know, we have those machines that, you know, pitch some nasty pitches to you, but it, you know, it definitely helps and prepares you for what's to come. So definitely have Coach Nick for always coming in with me every morning.
So, I mean, I think that this is pretty important to know. So were you always a defensive first player? Like when you were in high school, were you always better defensively than you were a hitter, or was that just a change that you happened to make once starting your college career?
I would say defense was pretty much always my strong suit. Hitting was definitely a lot of up and down, which is okay. You know, you just got to embrace the hard and love the good. But no, I would definitely say defense is my strong suit.
There's no shame in that. The hardest thing to do athletically is to get a base hit. So now
it's hard.
Yeah. Tell me about it. So you were thrust into a valuable role early in your career. You played 36 games and started 30 of them as a freshman. So do you think that early exposure was important to your long-term development?
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially in conference play, being able to just have that experience under your belt. Just because when you hit conference play, it's like it's like a business trip. You know, that's what we always call it. And just having that experience at such a young age to be able to take that, you know, with me throughout all the years, I think was very important and helpful.
Right. So now, speaking of development, you've obviously been surrounded by some excellent players, right? Now, when you were an underclassman, was there an older teammate of yours that was key in your development as a player? Like, was there any mentor or elder statesman type teammate that you looked up to?
Chelsea Evans, she was our shortstop. She also played third base in her younger years. She helped me out a lot. Caroline Seberg, she was also very helpful on the field. You know, she kept me calm. You know, I could always just look at her and she would be, you know, tell me that it's okay, you know, as a, you know, my little freshman self. But, you know, those two for sure really, really helped me.
Now, Matt, did you have something to say?
Yeah, actually.
Go ahead.
In the past, I've always asked this of players, I would say roughly 5 facts, but it doesn't have to be 5. It could be less, it could be more. Things that people should know about the team, but don't.
Are you speak like from like a different, like another team's perspective, or like
from following it as a fan? Things that a fan should know about your team, but they probably don't.
Like, what wouldn't we be able to know just by watching you guys play?
Exactly. That's it.
Sorry, like athletically speaking, or like
anything.
Either way.
Locker room, dugout. Yeah.
People don't know about us. I mean, we're a very funny group of people, I think. And I mean, I feel like it's to be expected that we put everything into what we got, but I think this team in specific, we embraced everything that was thrown at us, and just we were like 9 times out of 10 we were on top no matter what, and even if we were losing or winning, we were just so thankful for every second that we had on the field, just because it was cut short. I'm sure every team was, but I know that we talked about it all the time as a team, just how lucky we were to be able to do it all again. And maybe you couldn't really see that all the time, but we really were just so grateful.
During COVID, everybody was isolated, and your team, every team, had the same problem, that they were isolated from each other and yet still had to stay together. I mean, technology like this helps naturally, but
yep.
What was it like trying to keep the team together throughout all of that?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. It was incredibly difficult, just because we love each other and we wanted to, we wanted to hang out. We wanted to be with each other, but it just was not the reality of the situation. And we have group chats, like a group Snapchat. We did team Zooms over the summer, because we had an incoming freshman class of 9 or 8, I want to say. And, that's a lot of girls.
Yeah.
And obviously we wanted to be able to know them, because when they came on their visits, we said hi, but we knew that we weren't going to be teammates with them. But, surprise, we actually ended up being teammates with them. And we were, we wanted to do anything and everything we could to, get to know them. But I think, Zoom was incredible. Was our saving grace for sure.
That's an interesting point.
Right now, it's what we're using.
Right.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly.
That's an interesting point that you bring up, because, we've had a couple of fifth-year seniors on now. I'm Jared Milch, Chris Hamilton, Allie Kennedy. We've had a handful of them, and none of them actually brought up the fact that there were recruits who you guys were expecting to never actually see play, and then surely enough, you guys end up being teammates with them a year later. So
right.
Now, on the flip side of that question I asked you earlier about mentors and who mentored you when you were younger, did you guys take any of those younger freshmen under your wings and show them the ropes? Hey, this is how we do things here. This is how we do things at the D1 level. Yeah,
I would definitely say with most of those freshmen, we did that. But in specific, Kira McFarland she's my little mini-me. She reminds me exactly of how I was my freshman year. And we were able to relate to a lot of things to each other. If she needed something or had a question, she would go to me, and I'm sure others, and I'm very thankful she did, just because I knew what it was like to be in her shoes, being one of the freshmen. Well, in my freshman class, a lot of us started, but in her freshman class, she was one of the only ones who got a lot of playing time, and so I was able to relate to her a lot. She's great. I'm really excited to watch her grow as a player and as a person, and I'm very excited for her.
Now, your graduating class was just filthy, to say the least, right? I mean, you guys graduated Jordan Herring, Melissa Rarick, Dawn Bodrig, pretty good players, to say the least. So who steps up now and fills those voids? Can you even fill those voids?
Well, I think it's going to be different, like people coming in, people leaving. It's different every year, but my class, we were the loud ones at practice. We always talked about, what's it going to be like next year? But, Dawn's getting her 5th year. She's going to stay.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's breaking news right here. We didn't know that.
Really? Yeah. Dawn's coming back. Nicola McCarville is, I'm pretty sure, going to take her 5th year. Right, so I think their experience is going to, help them be those leaders. And I have full faith in both of them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a nice pleasant surprise. That's what we call a pleasant surprise, because we had honored her like earlier this year as one of the graduating seniors who we'll never see again. So I guess we were wrong about that. We'll at least get to see another year of her.
Happy to be wrong.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yes. A happy mistake, we'll call it. But now let's stay on that theme of those teammates you had, right? Because you played with not only good players, but historic players in terms of, Stony Brook athletics. I mean, Jordan Herring is the all-time leader in singles here, and Dawn Bodrick, obviously one of the best pitchers we've ever had, and Melissa Rarick, I think, is the all-time leader in like hits, RBIs, and runs or something like that, walks maybe too, and of course she was a very good pitcher. So
Right.
Who would you say is the best teammate you ever played with? And it doesn't have to just be one person, don't worry. But who would you say, if you had one pick of the litter, would be the best teammate you ever played alongside?
This could go a lot of different ways. One of the the best teammates I have ever had is Danielle Petrovic. She, I don't even know how to put into words the kind of teammate in person and player she is. And she changed the whole team and the whole culture of the team. And she's just incredible. That's really all I can say about her. But I couldn't be more thankful to be her teammate and her friend. And she just makes everyone around her better every day.
That's good. Yeah, she was a field general. Anyway, so I do want to, I guess I have to mention this. I'm obligated to mention this because I covered you guys. But after you guys swept UMass Lowell in that doubleheader, Lindsay Osmer had the walk-off hit. Nicole McCarville made those big defensive plays, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you remember.
Oh yeah.
You guys were sitting pretty, right? I think you guys had like a 5-game lead for first place in the conference and stuff, and you were looking like you were going to clinch home field. That ended up not happening. You guys got swept at the worst possible time, and then you dropped the other series to I think it was UMBC. So
Yeah.
How disappointing was it to not be able to play that last tournament at home?
Oh God, it was devastating, honestly. But I'm a person who believes that everything happens for a reason. And as sad as it was to play my last game on our home field, obviously there was still more games to play, and it honestly just lit a fire. It lit a fire and we were mad. We were pissed off going into the tournament, but we knew there was still more work to be done, and that's exactly what we did and showed.
Now, that pissed off emotion definitely showed in game one, right? I think you guys blew out Albany, and what was it, an 8-run first inning? You immediately put them in mercy rule position. And this was a team, of course, that had their way with you guys only a week or two prior. So what adjustments did you guys make to actually overcome Albany? Because you beat them twice in the tournament.
Right. We were, after getting swept, obviously no one wants to get swept, especially by one of your biggest rivals. Again, that we were just like, we're not losing to them again. We refuse to lose. And I think we just came out with so much energy. We just came out hot, and they for sure didn't expect us to do that. And I was talking to our coaches and the team after, like, going back to school after the Albany games, and I just said, they have not seen who we are yet, so they're going to be in for a big surprise come the conference tournament. And they were. That's
really cool. So now I want to ask you about this too. So offensively, obviously Jordan Herring and Melissa Rarick are lethal weapons, but you guys did happen to leave a lot of runners on base this year. Having said that, despite not being the best hitting team in the conference, you guys were very opportunistic. A lot of big hits, right? Kira McFarland, Lindsay Osmer, Nicole McCarville, you guys all, Jordan Nowakowski, everybody always seemed to come through at the best possible time. Now, is that just some sort of never say die mentality that Coach Bryant encourages, or is that just the group of girls that we had this year, gritty to the end?
I would say both. Big players step up in big moments. all of us want to be the person to do it. Not one of us is scared. We always talk about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So we practice, being in those situations. And I think, and whenever if you're not the one in that situation, then you have full faith that your teammate's going to do it. And that's just how we rolled this year, and it worked.
Okay. And I know we are coming to an end soon, but I want to get a couple more out of you.
Yeah.
We should touch up on Courtney Coppersmith, right? Because she's a one-man wrecking crew, or I guess a one-woman wrecking crew. She did slam the door against you guys. So what I want to know is what makes her so tough to hit? What is it about her that's just so overpowering?
Oh gosh, this question is hard.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's she's a lefty. She spins it well. She has a rise ball that is very hard to hit, clearly.
Yeah.
She went real inside on lefties, and it's a pitcher's pitch, and come 2 strikes, you gotta do what you can with it. So, we did everything we could to prepare. I have no regrets. The team, we really have no regrets because, we did everything that we could.
Mm-hmm. No, you shouldn't have any regrets. You guys put up quite the fight, and you had it all the way to the end. So again, no shame in that. And trust me, we were so proud of you guys. So no matter how you slice it, but I guess we'll have you for one more question, and then you're free to go. So, what was the single best moment of your career, or when you look back on your career, what is your favorite moment?
It's a tough question, but one of my all-time favorite weekends was when we were at George Washington my junior year. We had not a great start at CSU for season to start, but we went to George Washington, and Coach Bryant told us that if we won all the games, that she would take us to get cupcakes. And we were at the bottom of the 7th, 1 out. George Washington had a runner on second base, and we just needed that was the winning run or the tying run. So we just needed 2 outs, and there was a line drive. It was hit to me, and we doubled off the girl at second, and we won. We won the game, and it was so much fun. And we even at the end of the huddle, we said cupcakes or something, because we were so excited to get cupcakes. And it was just, what my favorite part was the way we responded after the weekend at CSU. We just came out guns blazing, and it was incredible.
That's awesome. Really. I love that. That's great. All right. Well, I guess that's all we have time for today, but I'm Mike Anderson. He's Matt Menkowicz, and you are Riley Craig. We'll definitely miss seeing you at the hot corner. We'll miss seeing you in the middle of that lineup, but it was great to speak to you. It was great.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
Of course.
We will be seeing you at homecoming, we hope.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. I am booking my ticket as soon as I can.
Yes. All right. And you're always welcome to come back on the show. It's a different link than the one you have right now that was specially created for you. But yes.
Let's
open
chat
door
again.
invitation.
I love this. Let's chat again for sure.
Absolutely. We'll have you back. All right, Riley. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Thank you. You guys too.
Okay, Riley Craig from the Stony Brook Seawolves softball team, now an alumna. Alumnus is the masculine form. But in any case, guys, entertaining interview. And one thing that Mike and I discussed, Mike's not on for the rest of the show. We just had him on for the interview. Mike and I discussed this, that we have a wireless microphone, and we're going to be broadcasting that homecoming football game. What we need to do is find out where everybody is sitting. That means send an email out a week before and say, what do your tickets say? Where are you going to be sitting? at the stadium so that we can run around and talk to them in the seats. It'd be really cool. What do you think?
Well, I do like the idea. That sounds like something that could definitely work. Probably pre-game. As far as during the game, could be pretty difficult unless we found the type of equipment where we can work on our own little sideline reports, if anything.
Well, that's it. We have it. We have a wireless mic that'll work. So that's the plan.
That sounds like it'll work very
using.
perfectly.
We may be using that for the other games, too. One thing we do have to do, though, is that we are getting closer and closer to football because NFL, of course, they open up their training camps third week in July. The colleges start first week in August. And all of a sudden, September is around, and we're doing football. And it's going to be normal football. And we're hoping to bring as much to you as possible, although that hasn't been, which games haven't yet been decided, but it's safe to say we'll be there at Laval Stadium. But the great thing, of course, is that we will have an opportunity to get a lot more people on, especially over the course of the rest of the summer, that we'll be talking to alumni and hopefully players from the upcoming seasons, too. Ken, are you there? Okay, so we're looking for Ken here. But in any case, where do you want to go? Zach, are there any news notices or anything like that you want to get in about Stony Brook before we move on to the pros?
Well, I'm not really certain about what to say about Stony Brook right now completely because we are actually still going to be waiting probably the rest of this month to see what other schedules for Stony Brook sports that could be coming soon other than football will be released. We already know the full Stony Brook football schedule. We're waiting to see what's going to happen with volleyball and men's and women's soccer, as those are also sports that occur during the fall. And also men's and women's basketball probably could be released this month. And already Sean Helber, the director of athletics at Stony Brook University, has already put out there a few weeks ago that Stony Brook in their non-conference slate is going to be guaranteed at least 7 home games, which is what he said, the most home games in a non-conference season for Stony Brook in program history. And we know that in the past that Stony Brook has played more games on the road during the non-conference than they played at home. And we have seen a lot of reasons why. So this, along with a lot of new additions and returns for the men's basketball team, could probably make this season the biggest since they won the America East title. That's my opinion.
By the way, there is one story that we do need to relay to everyone. If they haven't seen it yet, it came out a couple of days ago on Friday. India Pagan is going to be participating in the upcoming Tokyo Olympics as a member of Puerto Rico's women's basketball team.
This is what she has been preparing for the last few months and probably the last few years. And if anything, we are really excited for her and very proud of the accomplishments that she has made at Stony Brook. And before she decides to use that extra year of eligibility to return this upcoming season, she's got business in Tokyo, and we are going to be really excited to see her be one of the few Seawolves in program history to be a part of this special event that captures the whole world's view, that captures the whole world's attention.
And previously, we have had Stony Brook alumni participate in the Olympics. In particular, Lucy Van Dalen, who ran for New Zealand a couple of years back, a couple of Olympics back, I should say. And, looking back at that, we've had people here and there, but not a lot when you think about it. But this is going to be, it's a good reason to follow now. Not that you weren't going to follow anyway, but when you have one of your own participating, you want to see what happens. Okay, so one thing I do want to do is remind people that, first of all, Stony Brook has put football single-game tickets on sale. And also want to remind everyone that we will be back on the air broadcasting games sometime in September. In particular, now this is an anomaly in the schedule. We get a CAA game to start, and that will be against New Hampshire Thursday, September 2nd at 6 p.m., 5:45 on the air. Then they have two games on the road, one in particular at the birthplace of Nike, Oregon. But they go to Colgate, then they go to Oregon. Then they get Fordham back at home, and then CAA kicks in. Rhode Island and Towson on the road, Delaware and Richmond at home. Richmond will be homecoming October 23rd, in case you're wondering. And November 6th and 13th on the road, Maine and Villanova. And they finish Saturday, November 20th, home against Albany. And then, of course,
and this is what's
NCAAs.
So what I looked at as far as the football schedule goes is that besides the home opener against New Hampshire, what is very different about the schedule this year for Stony Brook is that when they play their home games, many of them are going to be at 3:30. In the past, we have seen games that have started at 6 o'clock or at 1 p.m. This season, one of Stony Brook's home games, which is their regular season finale against UAlbany, will be at 1 o'clock. So that is not going to be new. But what's new is that 3:30 start times for Stony Brook football at home is kind of new in some way. What we're looking at right now,
I'm guessing,
is that we have 5 planned home games for this upcoming season. One, of course, to begin the season at 6 p.m. The other 3 at 3:30. 2 of them against the CAA in Delaware, Richmond. The other one is non-conference against Fordham. And then, again, last but not least, UAlbany at 1 p.m.
Right. Now, we have to obviously ask to find out why they did that. But a guess would be that they're staggering against other games so that people will be available to watch. But the other thing that's also interesting, but they do this all the time, night games are fine in September, but they suck in November, which is why they get progressively earlier. And, of course, after Halloween, you're back on standard time. You're back to 4:30 sunsets. So you want to be on at 1. But 3:30 in September and October is okay. But again, if you see the road teams, or the teams that we go on the road to play, Colgate's at 1. Oregon's a Saturday night, but that's in September. But at Rhode Island is noon. At Towson is 4. That's interesting. That's like the late NFL game. At Maine at noon. At Villanova at 1.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is that at Towson at 4 p.m., Stony Brook has been there before. And by been there, I mean literally the last time they went to Towson, that game, if I recall, was also at 4 p.m. It was it was a game that Stony Brook, of course, wanted to forget, trailing early 21-0. Was able to come back, but then eventually blew it again. So putting yourself in that
Joe
position,
Flacco's brother.
It would seem that Towson.
Yep.
The fact is, Towson appears to be playing a lot of 4 p.m. games at home over the last few years. I have judged their time, so for Towson, this just isn't anything new at all. We just continue to see how the home games for Stony Brook at 3:30 is new, but in my opinion, I'm just trying to see, like, Whether or not this also has any bearing about the viewings, of course, is virtually impossible for any Stony Brook game to be nationally shown on TV, of course. It's just that, in my opinion, what I've seen in NFL and college football games throughout the last few decades is that one of the best viewed games in a day usually comes from like late in the afternoon. Like when you watch the NFL, there are usually games that are changed around because of its rating and like expectancy. Like this past season, when the Giants hosted the Browns, it was moved to Sunday Night Football because what was at stake for both of those teams, both of them making a push into the playoffs that caused their original time from 1 p.m. to change to 8:20. So I don't know if the new start time this season for Stony Brook at home has anything to do with the expectancy of who's going to be starting for this team, what it's going to be looking like, what their expectancy is. But of course, if anything, eventually we will also be able to find out for ourselves if we do have a preseason poll in the conference this offseason about where Stony Brook would be placed.
Right. By the way, we are also looking at a big celebration over in Milwaukee because the Bucks have taken Game 3 by a fairly significant amount. But we'll talk about that in the second hour. But we are aware the game just ended. One thing I also want to preview for the second hour is that the New York Post has this long-standing tradition of putting out report cards, especially mid-season, for the Yankees and the Mets. And I'm hoping that they have theirs out already, but we kind of have to do our own and just rate each player or each part of the team, hitting, pitching, fielding, what have you. But the problem we have here, though, is that you've got some F's, I think, in there on both teams. But in any case, the other things that we are going to be keeping an eye on is that the soccer teams, of course, will be getting underway in the fall, cross country as well, and we'll be doing some interviews there. I don't know what the plans are yet to broadcast soccer, although we have done it before. Zach, you and Ken been talking about that at all?
I'm sorry, which sport was it that you were mentioning?
Soccer.
Well, we know for a fact that we didn't have a chance, or of course we chose not to, probably. We did not broadcast either men's or women's soccer during this past spring season.
Well, because we couldn't fit any in.
Of course we're also going to be judging their home games based on when the football team plays their games as well. If there are any games when the football team is on the road and men's or women's soccer or maybe even volleyball are going to be at home that same weekend, that's probably games that we'll try to work on in that case, because I'm sure that with the women's soccer team coming off an America East championship and another NCAA tournament appearance, their expectancies under their third-year head coach in Tobias Bishop is once again going to be high. We could hopefully expect the men's soccer team to try and rebound once again after they're coming off back-to-back losing seasons. And for the volleyball, we know that the last two seasons for them has not been big as opposed to their America East championships that they got when Kristen Belzung first came to the program. So we know that the future is high for them. So as I repeat, we are hoping and waiting to see when the men's and women's men's and women's soccer and volleyball schedules will be released. Our expectancy, once again, is that it could happen this month because if the schedules for these teams are eventually going to be normal, as you said, then we can expect their season openers to begin late August.
That's right. And as we get closer and
So they have to
closer,
get the schedules out eventually.
one thing we're also going to be moving closer to is we're going to start getting, in August, we'll get Chuck Priori on, we'll get the soccer coaches on, and we'll start previewing the fall season. We're still kind of doing 2021 in review. And now that we've hit the midpoint of baseball and starting to look at the fall sports kicking in a couple of weeks, we have to start looking forward. Up until now, we were looking backward. Well, the other thing, too, is that everything ended kind of late, too. So we were spending June and this part of July just looking back. Now we have to move forward. So, any other news items that we want to share? I'm just thinking, we talked about the football schedule, and we're still waiting for other schedules. India Pagan, of course, Tokyo bound. And, oh, yes. Unfortunately, Nick Tropiano just got optioned back down to AAA. But he did look good over the weekend in his outing with the Mets. And also, Travis Jankowski has found a niche for himself with the Phillies.
Well, that's really good news to know about Stony Brook in the MLB. I wasn't even aware about what happened to Nick Tropiano after he got his.
It was announced this morning.
A few days ago.
Yeah, they brought him up and they brought him back down.
That does explain how Eichhoff did have his relief appearance for the Mets today in their loss against Pittsburgh, which, of course, we will also be getting into during the second hour. But we always know how encouraging it is to see these Seawolves look like they have that type of potential. And then we saw Tropiano, 2 innings the other night, allowing only 1 run. And I believe that was part of a staggering win for the Seawolves, where they were pretty much crushing Pittsburgh in Game 1 of that series. And Jankowski getting his step up as the Phillies, of course, have been getting hit with some injuries, and so Travis Jankowski has been trying to fill that hole to the best of his abilities. Right now, the Phillies are the closest team in contention in the NL East, with the first place Mets, who are 3.5 games ahead in first place. And of course, we know that there's also other promising talent that we can hope to see eventually in the pros, and that is, of course, correlating with the fact that tonight is the first night of the 2021 MLB draft. We know, of course, it's way too early to see any potential Seawolves taken, but we saw some players, we talked to some players who are still looking for some hope that they'll eventually be in the pros, maybe eventually. We'll see who it is.
But talking about Jankowski, there was a great article in the Philadelphia Inquirer a few days ago that talks a little bit about a base running blunder that Jankowski made a few weeks back. And then later on, he's starting to find a role with this Phillies team. 9 hits and 26 at-bats, banked .346, just 4 strikeouts and 35 plate appearances. Not bad at all. But this is what I really like, and you'll get a kick out of this too, Zach. I quote Joe Girardi. He's been really good. He's another guy to me that's a baseball player. He really knows how to play the game. He knows what his tools are. He uses his tools to the best of his advantage. He's played really well. And the first thing that popped into my head was that could be used to describe any player that has ever come out of Stony Brook.
Joe Girardi, you're talking about.
Yeah, he just basically described every player that's ever come out of Stony Brook, because that is the type of player that Matt Sink and his staff likes to nurture. That's what he teaches. He teaches fundamentally sound baseball.
Sounds to me like that could really be something that could possibly bring Girardi and Sank together one day. I mean, already Jankowski is playing for Girardi, and if you're really putting it down like that, I'm sure that pretty much puts Jankowski well into Girardi's system. We have seen Jankowski look pretty sharp and pretty decent throughout his last few years, ever since coming out of that College World Series season with Stony Brook and into the pros. He's been able to stay in the pros for quite a while, keeping himself from his chances of staying in there any down further. It's just refusing to give in to calling it a career, and we're not seeing any sign of him.
Yeah, as seen over the past couple weeks, Janikowski, really, his greatest strength has been just getting on base. The last 15 games, he's managed to get 7 hits and 7 walks as well, and on base percentage of about .412, which is, I think, just under league average. But again, this coming over a 2-week period.
What you need him to do. He is great on the base paths. That one blunder from a few weeks back notwithstanding. But the big thing that he brings to the table, he brought to the table as a Seawolf. Okay, he can drive the ball when he needs to, but the most important thing is he's a great leadoff hitter. He gets on base, has speed, gets things moving. That is what you need to do. That's what he's been able to do with the Phillies. And if he keeps doing that, he's going to have a role there, which is good. And not only that, Girardi recognizes it, which is even more important.
Yeah, they need that. He's been one of the underlying factors for why Philadelphia enters the All-Star break second in the NL East, right behind New York.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
sharing the fact, and even though they are at 500 and half a game ahead of Atlanta, you can probably see the bottom 3 of the NL East probably start having a chance to probably plummet because of Atlanta being hit with a severe injury. In Miami, of course, being who they are, and Washington, not really feeling the same ever since their World Series win against Houston back in 2019. We know that this NL East could probably look like what we've seen out of the NFC East over the last few years, but for the Mets to be where they are right now, of course, again, we'll get into that, but we know the type of competition this is going to get into, and Travis Jankowski, he is definitely trying to make the most of it. He has a good batting average so far, although it could be hard to determine since he didn't really start the season completely. As far as I'm concerned, looked like he has 35 at-bats, and off of them, 11 hits so far.
But that was also a knock on his game early on, that he was having difficulty adjusting to Major League pitching. Little by the way, because I called up that article in the Inquirer, Kumar Rocker, who is Mets' first-round draft pick from just a few hours ago, is the son of Eagles assistant coach Tracy Rocker. How do you like that? We do have to talk a little bit about that, because that was taking place right after the last games of today's action, which, of course, leads to the All-Star break. So, first of all, I'm opening up the first-year player draft because I want to see 1 to 29. Okay, here we go. Yes, this is up to date. So, who did the Yankees pick? Well, the Mets, we said, Kumar Rocker. Jack Leiter got picked by the Texas Rangers.
People are happy with that.
Leiter's son. And the Yankees, Trey Sweeney from Eastern Illinois. Rocker was apparently supposed to go higher, and the Mets got lucky. He dropped down. They were able to pick him.
Yeah, shocked me for sure. He's probably the second best pitcher behind Leiter in that draft. And it's interesting, too, for a team like the Mets, who routinely have great young studs in their rotation, and they just picked up another one, and a big one at that in Kumar Rocker. He really may be the steal of the draft, if you think about it. Again, you only fell to 10, but again, right behind Jack Leiter, who he was teammates with, he had 173 strikeouts over the past season, which was the second most in the country.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the other picks. Pittsburgh Pirates picked up Henry Davis, catcher from Louisville. Leiter, we mentioned. Jackson Jobe from Heritage Hall School in Oklahoma for the Tigers.
Something interesting,
Marcelo
too, which
Meyer.
should delight Met fans is this from the New York Post, so we'll credit Zach Braziller with this note. But one of his sources indicated that because Rocker demanded high money, it may have been a factor for him sliding down a bit on the draft board. And that's something where you're a Mets fan, under old management, you got to question if you're still going to pick up Rocker, with how financials were then. This team, the Mets, really didn't break the bank too much. Looking back at the past 10-ish, 15 years, really outside of David Wright, I don't remember them spending big money. Well, Yoenis Cespedes as well. But outside of those two occasions, I really don't remember them spending crazy money like that. So while we don't know an official tally, the fact that, again, new management has indicated, hey, we're not afraid to, spend some extra money to get a great player is only beneficial for this Mets team, which, even without him, still tops the NL East.
Okay. It's 11 o'clock, WUSB Stony Brook. This is the sports section. I'm Matt Mankiewicz, Zach Wilson, and Ken Furman with me live. Mike Anderson was with us on tape earlier when we were talking to Riley Craig, softball player for the Stony Brook Seawolves, and now an alum. But now we are at the All-Star break. We are actually past the midseason point in terms of games. That was actually about a week ago. 81 games played by both teams. And the Yankees at game 81 were 41-40. Had a good week. Had a great couple of days in Houston. Not giving up a run. And giving up only two more up to the ninth inning of today's game. And then all hell broke loose again. And to put the cherry on it.
I don't really understand. Look, here's
three
my
straight
thing.
doubles.
Okay, well, here's the thing. Domingo Germán is usually seen more as a starting pitcher, and I know that he hasn't been the starting pitcher that the Yankees expected out of him coming out of that suspension that stemmed from late 2019 and the entire shortened 2020 season last year. But why would you put him in that type of position? Because putting him in that type of position where you're leading and have a chance to win, that just reminded me of how that caused the Dodgers to flounce Game 5 of the 2019 NLDS against Washington. They put Clayton Kershaw in there, hoping that he can use his great starting pitching skills to keep the Nationals at bay, but it didn't work, and all that did was just give the Nationals that shocking upset against the Dodgers. So, I mean, I don't get whether or not Aaron Boone was trying to take a page out of Dave Roberts' playbook, but I don't really see how you can put a pitcher like that in that type of position, especially when you have a great lead. I mean, you think you put that type of confidence on him? That feels like they can only create more pressure.
I agree. And really, I feel like this loss really showcased the Yankees' flaws entering the All-Star break. Again, this is most teams, virtually every team is going to win in this situation. Here's a fact for you. This season alone, teams leading by 4 or more runs entering the ninth are 493-2. The Yankees are responsible for both of those losses. And it's something that really showcases the problem from all the way down the lineup and how this team is managed. You're absolutely right. That's really a situation where he probably shouldn't have been in to begin with, number one. You could assume Boone wants to give him some reps because the All-Star break, everyone's going to have a week off. But still, at that point, once he starts struggling, you got to yank him sooner than that. And number two, again, this is a 5-run lead we were talking about at the time. And the Astros were able to rally back and put out 6 runs, including the cherry on top of giving up a home run to Jose Altuve, which is the last guy Yankee fans want to see hitting home runs. Again, it goes back to their flaws. They, this team, to me, is not constructed for winning baseball. They performed great, absolutely. Yesterday, it took Cole pitching a gem of an outing for them to win, because outside of the Aaron Judge home run, Cole and Judge are the only two guys I feel like showing up for the Yankees. And even Cole was struggling up until yesterday. But outside of them, relying on those two or three key guys, this team finds ways to lose you wouldn't even believe. And again, it's just not winning baseball.
It really, well, first of all, you've seen my comments on Facebook. Don't ever let Jose Altuve beat you again. I don't. Comes up in a situation like that, potential winning run, you walk him. Oh no! If you want to get your point across, hit him and give him first base. I don't care. Do not pitch to him. Take his moment away. Take your chances.
You know what's hilarious about this series is that this is the second straight series for the Yankees at Houston where they begin it where in game one they shut out Houston, and then eventually it ends when Jose Altuve walks it off on a walk-off homer.
Oh,
because that's exactly what happens in the 2019 ALCS. The Yankees win game one in the shutout against the Astros, and then eventually the Astros win the ALCS in game six with Jose Altuve's two-run homer walk-off against Aroldis Chapman. And basically it happens again. Yankees do the shutout, win game one, and then eventually they lose the finale to Houston because of Altuve's walk-off.
He's the guy you love to hate. And he, of course, was part of the cheating scandals that happened in 2017. And when the Stros came to New York this past early in the season, the Yankee fans let him have it good. But Mike Vaccaro, columnist for the New York Post, actually wrote something interesting. And he says, bitter Yankees-Astros rivalry is exactly what MLB needs more of. And I actually agree with him. Bitter rivalries are fun. I mean, sports hate is different from quote-unquote normal hate. If Jose Altuve walked into a room, you wouldn't necessarily have anything personal against him, but damn. If he walked into a room right now and full of Yankee fans, they'd be throwing stuff at him. He's the enemy now. Now, I've been saying this for a while now. I mean, for example, you want to go back a couple of weeks, the Islanders and Rangers. That rivalry is of no consequence. Why? Because win or lose, it's one game in the standings. Islanders Lightning is of consequence because they faced each other and twice in a row in the semifinals for the Stanley Cup, and Tampa Bay prevailed. And you know for a fact that the Islanders would have beaten the Montreal Canadiens had they been able to get past Tampa Bay. And only a shorthanded goal separated them. There's your rival. In the 70s, everybody talks about 1978 and Bucky Dent and the playoff game and the pennant race that year, coming back from 14.5 back, all that wonderful stuff. But the Yankees' main rivalry at the time was not the Red Sox. It was the team that came after in the ALCS. 3 years in a row, they faced the Royals. 3 years in a row, they beat them. 79 was an off year for both teams. 1980, the Royals got their revenge and swept the Yankees. And then the Pine Tar game, the Royals were more hated than the Red Sox. The Red Sox weren't standing the Yankees' way. The Royals were. So, and the Angels. There's a time when the Yankees have historically had trouble out in Anaheim. They take a trip out there, they drop 2 out of 3, pencil it in. In 1998, when the Yankees won 114 games, the only team in baseball that had a winning record against them was the Angels. So, but the Angels knocked them out in the postseason. Red Sox, where are they? Our problem right now is the Angels. And that's where the Astros have to be right now. Unfortunately, they don't face them again this year until the postseason. So, and you are chasing the Red Sox in the division. And you have 8 games against them in the coming weeks.
I don't see how the Yankees make the postseason. Again, they're the only team to blow a lead entering the ninth with 4 runs. Not even once, twice. I mean, it's going to take a lot of changes.
And this time you can't even blame
loss,
Chapman.
That's the worst part to me.
Yeah, because Chapman didn't even have a freaking role in that. I mean, like,
that is the worst part.
Did he have an actual role during the series?
You guys want to know how much Aaron Boone and this management trust the role of Chapman? Yankees were up 5, or rather up 4 or 5, whatever, entering the final inning, and they couldn't even trust Aroldis Chapman to get 3 outs. I mean, if this guy pitches in a Yankees uniform again this season, I need to know what the Yankees see, because to me, at this point, he's got to be trade bait. I don't know who's going to want him. I don't know who would take him switching like this. I'd imagine I'd give him more because everyone has seen through Ronald Chapman after. And again, an all-star. It's not like he was terrible the entire season, but over the past 6 weeks, and really more coinciding with the ban of the spider tack, he has become one of the worst pitchers in baseball. And I hold the phrase worst in baseball just because the Yankees have withheld him from opportunities like this to further give up.
You want a really good laugh? Aroldis Chapman is an all-star.
Unbelievable.
Yep, remember that.
Before
they're
he
judging him from early this season when he looked
and
really
again, it's incredible. You remember his first 12 starts, 0 ERA, and 12 appearances. But really, since his last 6 weeks or so, he is just gone. You know, I can't imagine any Yankee fans being happy if he plays in the All-Star game, just because you can just tell, you know, they really don't feel, the fan base really doesn't feel represented by Chapman anymore as they do Judge and Cole. And if he has a great showing there, it's only going to rile Yankee fans, noting he's performing good at the All-Star game, but he can't do it to secure a sweep in the series. And again, there's a lot of holes with this Yankees lineup. As we saw yesterday, you know, besides Aaron Judge, the hitting just wasn't there. I thought hitting performed better than usual this week. Starting rotation, I thought was really good. Again, especially with Garrett Cole. But that bullpen, man, you know, there needs to be a lot of replacements and trades if this team wants to even sniff the playoffs. And again, it's incredible because this is a team that I believe is still over 500, but they're 4th in the division, and you really got to wonder, besides an epic meltdown from the teams above them, what else is it going to take?
Well, first of all, you have to, if you can, evaluate what you can get, what kind of help you can get in the bullpen. You'll get Zach Britton back. That will help. As a matter of fact, I'm going to see if I can get Peter Schwartz, who did the post game today on WFAN. See if I can get him on, get his take on it. But in any case, keep on going. Mid-season is also the perfect time for several media outlets to put out report cards on individual players. So take a look at this. Because I'll tell you something. Well, talk about Peter Schwartz. I'm actually on message with him. That's why you hear the chimes. Because it's also coming up on the Zoom here. See if we can get him on. But he had to do the post game on WFAN as a fill-in, and he had everything penciled in. He had a win penciled in, 5-run lead going into the 9th inning, and throw it all out the window. Every writer, both sides, in the press box. Basically had to chuck everything they had been writing the entire game and start all over again. So first of all, that's baseball, Susan. But it happens 3 times in a 2-week period. You really have to wonder. Okay, the reason why I bring up the report cards, because I'm going to go NJ.com did put one out, and I believe that the Post always puts one out, but I haven't seen theirs yet. But, okay, but this is interesting. I'm going to start off with Brian Cashman. And NJ.com's report card, they're great compared to, let's say, ours. Okay. He's the lead architect of this underperforming Yankees roster. Now, remember, this was written a week ago when they were 41-40. Cashman bet that Gleyber Torres would thrive playing shortstop every day, that Corey Kluber would be worth $11 million, that Jameson Taillon would bolster the rotation, that salary-dumping Adam Ottavino would be a good idea, and Justin Wilson wouldn't implode like he has. The list could go on longer, but it's clear this hasn't been his finest work. Let's revisit after the trade deadline, though. By then, he'll likely have guided the team through sell mode and will have sealed the failing grade. F. Aaron Boone. The fan base is mostly turned on Boone for the reason it loved him when he won 100 games in each of the first 2 seasons. The cool as a cucumber routine works when you're winning, doesn't go over well when you have to thank the Orioles for being the only team in the AL East with a worse record. This team, Yankee Stadium, heard chants of fire Boone, and with his contract expiring at season's end, it's difficult to see him returning if there's not a massive turnaround. Grade F. How do you like that?
Yeah,
Gary
hot and heavy to start.
Anybody disagree?
You know, especially after today's game, you'd be hard pressed to find a Yankees fan argue any different.
Here's the thing. How much of that is Boone's fault?
Well, the decisions today to leave Green, to overwork Green is a big part.
The Angels game where Chapman imploded the first time, I think he waited one batter too long. He should not have let Chapman walk the bases loaded. He saw that Chapman wasn't finding the plate, should have pulled him after 2 men were on.
Yep.
They might have saved the game that way.
I agree.
Okay. Against the Mets, you already know he can't find the plate. Why are you putting him in there then? I mean, people talk about this all the time. You got to believe in your closer. If your closer is Mariano Rivera and he blows one, okay. He's human. When he's blowing it for the same reason over and over again, something's wrong. And you don't rule him out there to get beat up again. Okay? So, Gary Sanchez, B+ according to NJ.com, and I get it, because he's had a really incredible resurgence.
I think that's a little too high. For a lot of this year, he was definitely more towards the CD territory. But, no, I agree. He's resurged. Today, for example, he hit his 15th homer of the season. And he's been calling good games for most of the year. Well, he's been calling fine games most of the year behind home plate. But today was not one of those days.
Gleyber Torres. Many Yankees have suffered offensive drop-offs in 2021. Torres tops them all. He's hit just 6 home runs over his last 113 games. That's after clubbing 38 in 2019 and looking like one of the best young hitters in the game at age 22. And the defense, not so much his fault. He's not a shortstop. Everyone knows it. Yet the Yankees shoehorn him into the position every night. Believing their defensive shifts will help even things out. He is graded on a curve because he's playing way out of position. Could be affecting him at the plate, but he's a D.
Yeah, that's about right. And I wouldn't be pressed to give him an F either because his batting has not been great. And yeah, he's out of position, but we saw James McCann play out position at first base for the Mets, and he filled in fine for Pete Alonso. So for Gleyber Torres, for me, he's the guy I want to get rid of the most if I'm Yankees management. Find some way to trade him, whether it's building for the future, which they kind of are, drafting a shortstop earlier today with their first overall pick. That kind of indicates how much faith they really got in this Torres experiment, which is dumb one to even have to begin with. Surprisingly, yeah.
He's still young. LeMahieu. Okay. Yankees gave him a 2-year, $24 million deal in 2019. He overperformed that. Then he gets a 6-year, $90 million deal, and he's banged .270. And 719 OPS, grade F.
Yeah, well, I want to give him a passing grade, but he's been more of a D player for me just because he's found ways to reach base virtually every game over the past couple months. I remember reading a stat a few days ago where he reached base in 23 straight games. So to do that is not an easy task. So I feel like he's worth a D, but you're absolutely right. You want to talk about regressions. This guy is the definition of it. I mean, he went from perennial all-star to nothing in the span of one offseason. His batting way down. It's bad.
Urshela has been steady. 10 home runs, 272 as of last week. But the Yankees shouldn't have to rely so heavily on his bat. Give him a B. That's fair. Tyler Wade filling in on defense, running the bases. He's been okay. Luke Voigt. Between knee surgery and oblique strain, he has played just 22 games. He's hitting just 188. He led Major League Baseball with homers last year, 22 in the 60-game season. He's got just 3 right up going into this week or last week. Voigt has to stay on the field. He has to hit to be valuable. He hasn't done either. Grade F. Rougned Odor at second base. He's been exactly what he's been in his 4 previous underperforming seasons with the Rangers. Home runs or strikeouts with below-average defense at second base. Why is he there? He's a D. Giancarlo Stanton, 14 home runs, which actually rates pretty good with this team. They need much more than him. Again, these stats are a little bit outdated. This article's about a week old. He's making $26 million, and he has not been earning it. And he's been too concerned about getting hurt to play the outfield, grade C. Aaron Judge, A-. He's been the steadiest hitter on the team. The problem is he's at peak value right now. And if this goofiness continues on, this series coming out of the break, because you take a look at the Yankees' schedule, it doesn't get easy, number one. But even more important, you take a look. I'm going to pull it up right now. You got 4 games at home against the Red Sox, 2 against the Phillies, and 4 more at Fenway, and 3 against the Rays before you finally finish out the month against the Marlins. You can't get more crucial than that.
Yep. These are all teams performing better than the Yankees. All
because
first and second place.
If the Yankees do what the 1978 Yankees did to the Red Sox in a similar situation, they will overtake them in the standings. And the biggest complaint that everybody had about today's loss is that the Rays and the Red Sox lost. And the Yankees missed an opportunity to make up ground. Well, now you're going to go up against them head-to-head at home. And people just, they don't know what to expect. Are they going to take another 7-2 lead into the ninth and, give it to the latest cannon fodder of the day? They're going to make or break their season in the next 3 weeks.
Oh, agreed. This is the most important time of the season for them, which is bad in one sense because it's this early compared to a lot of other teams where really August, September is that sort of deadline. But you're right. Really, these next 2-3 weeks will dictate whether the Yankees should keep pushing for a playoff spot or blow it all up. And if you lose those 3 series, I don't see any hope in the Yanks even getting a wild card spot.
What if, because there's only like 3 have a wild card, what if they split 8 games, 4-4?
It's
They
not
will
great, but
not
do need
great.
it could be worse.
Against Boston to get their first win against them this season. How long is that going to take for them?
That's the other problem. They have had 0 success against them so far. Okay, continuing with the grades. Brett Gardner, C-. Okay. Clint Frazier, another guy that much was expected of. He got the starting left field job, squandered the opportunity, non-factor offensively, worst rated defenders, one of the worst by advanced statistics. Why was he nominated for a Gold Glove in 2020? His only saving grace, the next player on this list may have Frazier's job right now, but hasn't exactly taken it over for good. Landon Carr. Okay? He's not going to play third base anymore because Urshela, I think, has not nailed that down. He's a C-. Aaron Hicks, F. He's not there. Starting pitching. Garrett Cole, A- because that little bumpy hit in the road. Jordan Montgomery is C. Domingo Herman, C. Corey Kluber, D. He's on the 60-day IL. Jameson Taillon had a good outing just the other night. Otherwise, crap. Gave him an F because they didn't obviously count this last one. Aroldis Chapman, a B. Remember, this is a week old. Okay, but
that's kind of sad that this predates 2 Chapman blown saves when this article was released. That's real sad. To be fair, again, there's a reason he's an all-star because he did have a great start to the season. He definitely was deserving of an A or B. As of this moment, for not even whiffing time during the series, he gets the F-.
Right. But then Chad Green, who blew it today, who served up, the pitch was out of the strike zone. Altuve just fished for it. Okay, you got to give Altuve credit in that case, much as I hate him. But Chad Green and Aroldis Chapman are definitely the GOATs for the past week, and I don't mean greatest of all time. Okay, Zach Britton, elbow surgery, strained hamstring. He's pitched his 5 games, incomplete. Loizaga, A-, okay. He's been pretty solid. Lucas Luque, B-. Mike King, C. Darren O'Day, B. Justin Wilson, 8.17 ERA in 17 games, F. Nestor Cortez, B. Gives him some length. So, what we get out of this is basically the same stuff we've been saying the entire first half of the season. That this team, like I said about the Islanders, improving with the same personnel, this team has regressed with the same personnel. And as a result of that, could these guys all turn around? Like we said, the opportunity is there. You can't look at these next 3 weeks. Yes, you can look at it as kind of a make or break because if they perform poorly, it's going to influence management decisions what to do at the trade deadline. No doubt about it. But it's a golden opportunity to wipe the first half out completely. Because if they do perform well in those 8 games against the Red Sox, if they do take 2 out of 3 from the Rays, they go into August looking pretty good. and all that other stuff forgotten.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot. And obviously, number one is the offense waking up and producing like they did today in terms of getting 7 runs. And obviously, you're not going to get that every game, but you got to start getting 5 or 6 to really back up your pitching, number one. And
Well,
the
they're
bullpen
getting it.
really got to step it up.
I mean, look, in any winning formula, you're going to have to pull out the occasional 3-2 game, the occasional 1-0 game. And if you got the pitching to do it, more power to you. If you score 7 runs like the Yankees did today, 90% of the time you're going to win. Okay? Unless, of course, you have an implosion like you. Well, actually, here's another thing. In all 3 of those implosions over the past couple of weeks, the Yankees scored plenty of runs. They didn't blow it 2-1. They blew it 8-7.
Yeah, that's fair. But really, though, the bullpen, again, it's really been arguably their biggest issue. Not accounting for offense, because outside, again, the names you named, Michael King, Darren O'Day, Chad Green, well, as he didn't do today, but who can you really turn to in that bullpen? Someone's got to step up, number one, to a Chapman down, and number two, they got to find a way to find some relievers of value and get them on this team.
Yeah, but everybody wants those. It's not going to be easy.
No,
and
it's
again,
not, but the Yankees have made it work in the past. So they got to figure out how to do that again.
If the Yankees go in the tank this last half of July, if that happens, do you pull the trigger and deal Aaron Judge?
That's been the question amongst many Yankee fans. That's the hot topic on social media right now. And I thought there's valid arguments on both sides. But really the ultimate question should be, what do you see this future like with him and without him on the team? Is it better to deal him and start over and build around a new athlete, a new player? Or is Aaron Judge going to be the guy to get you excellent pieces to sign with his Yankees team, or request trades to the Yankees team to play alongside him? And considering so far there hasn't been a lot of movement, to me, it certainly feels like, as much as the Yankees like Aaron Judge, he's certainly not off the table in terms of dealing him and getting better prospects or potentially better players who will be there longer, in the long run, and find more success in the near future. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if Aaron Judge was traded. Well, I personally wouldn't do it. I think Brian Cashman and Yankees management, if they want to win the World Series again, I don't see Aaron Judge on this team, but I see a lot of players who were traded for Aaron Judge on this team, whoever it may be.
That's the big question. What are you going to get? What's going to be offered? And will those additions be able to help the team quickly? And all big ifs. Because if you deal for prospects, you may not see results from those prospects for another couple of years.
And that's the other issue, too, because if you're looking for short-term success, you obviously got to keep Aaron Judge. And considering Cashman hasn't made any indications of blowing the team up now, you're assuming they're not really looking to tank unless it's absolutely necessary. So in that case, you really got to move virtually every piece with Mayhew, Torres, Urshela, Sanchez, etc., to complement Aaron Judge and really restructure this team from what's their primary function of essentially being a long ball team to now being more of a contact team, getting runners on base for Aaron Judge to drive him home. And Giancarlo Stanton, assuming you're not trading him either.
So now we turn to the Mets. And we can take a look at position by position. And I'm just going to call up, let's say, we shall take a look at the team stats here. Okay. Let's see, hold on. We will start at, let's say, catcher. James McCann, been getting most of the action. 249 hitter, 7 home runs. He's been okay. Pete Alonso, not necessarily hitting the way he did a couple of years ago. His average is at 250. He's still hitting home runs. He's got 17 of them. His RBIs at 49, which on pace for 100. Okay, but I think they need a little bit more from him. Moving on.
Still at very, very least of how he's been performing. No,
I
it's
would
got to
give
be
him
B plus, A minus.
A minus for Pete Alonso?
Well, B
I
plus.
give
I'll
him
say
B
at the very
minus.
least.
I give him a B
I'd give
minus.
it higher than that.
Okay, I gave McCann a C, but B minus for Alonso. Okay, now
He did hit a great home run yesterday.
Jeff McNeil, not known for his power these days. Another fair to middling job so far in the season. 3 home runs, 14 RBIs in 53 games, 258 average. Okay, I'll rate him a C. Lindor.
Now he's
Big
interesting.
free agent signing. He's turned it around in the past few weeks, but boy, his start was terrible.
Oh, yes.
Based on his last few weeks, I'd give him a C minus, which of course he can improve over the course of the season, but you can't discount the fact that he just wasn't there first 2 months of the season.
Right. I thought he had a great week this week, though, which is why I'm not afraid to give him a C, because he did bat 333, drew 5 walks, had 7 hits, and a pair of home runs.
Okay, so let me see if I can get a box score up for today, because I want to make sure I get everybody correct position by position. And let's see, who is... Okay. Dominic Smith. Another guy who more was expected, but his offense, the whole team's offense, is the main reason why they have a single-digit lead in the National League East instead of a double-digit.
That's true. They should be under 500 like the rest of the division is right now.
Their pitching obviously has been saving them, and we'll get to that. I'm just going by position right now. Today's left fielder, Dominic Smith, again, another guy who has been fair to middling when more was expected of him. I think you give him a C as well.
Yeah,
Michael?
Yeah, he's really picked it up for the past couple weeks, though.
Okay, so moving on, Brandon Nimmo played center field today.
I'll tell you right now, he's an A plus just because his presence alone has seemed to wake up the Mets offense, and everyone is seemingly hitting better. You know, so even though statistically he may not have the best, and he's got pretty good stats, compared to league average, he gets an A plus just for being a great leadoff hitter, number one. And again, he seems to really wake up the bats for New York when he's in the lineup, which is something they were desperately missing.
Yeah, because we know that things have been looking quite odd during that stretch when the Mets had a lot of players on the IL, including them, though. But still think about how it's very interesting that the Mets were still able to win some games during them because, in my opinion, I was starting to wonder whether or not bringing those players back from the IL would do more harm than good because they didn't really look so hot with the hitting at first, but they still do right now, even with all the pieces. And we know that there's still one piece that's still missing, J.D. Davis, that could be coming back after the All-Star break, and that will make back for what appears to be a fully healthy Mets roster that can still be in great contention for that NL East title. And they're still looking pretty sharp right now as we continue to talk about how they take advantage of everybody else in the NL East just being unfortunate right now. Miami still unfortunate as ever. Nationals still the same, and the Braves as if their problems couldn't get any serious enough. The fact that Ronald Acuna suffered a torn ACL and is out for the rest of the season. Apparently now the Braves would have to rely on their best batter that's active in Freddie Freeman, but that may not be enough.
Well, that's one thing that's going to, I think, that's going to hurt the Atlanta Braves and definitely help the Mets. But continuing on, Brandon Nimmo, Michael Conforto. He, of course, had a big home run today. But, again, another guy that had a lot of expectations and was actually out for a little while, so we'll come some slack there. But he's a 202.
This is a guy who needs to have a great second half. I feel like of all Mets right now, the pressure's on him the most just because, his future's uncertain re-signing with this team next season. At the start of the season, a lot of fans and analysts, myself included, thought it'd be wise for the Mets to re-sign Conforto then. And something to note too was another outfielder, center fielder, George Springer was available. And if he was signed this year, it's unlikely Conforto's getting signed again. But the Mets opted to pass on him, which further showed their trust in Conforto. But as you say, he's hitting 200, 335, 284. That's a slash line. It is awful, especially for a guy like him. And you're right, he's been injured, but that doesn't help your case when you're trying to battle for a better contract and you go on the IL for 5 weeks. If anything, he's really got to step it up.
Yeah, right now he's a D. But opportunity, obviously, if he stays healthy, to be right where he needs to be. And that's going to be a big thing for the Mets because they're getting guys back. They had a lot of injuries early on. They actually lost some games that they've had to make up due to other teams having COVID issues. But the important thing here is that we're getting to the pitching. And this is where you would think makes all the difference in the world. Jacob deGrom, A+.
That's too low, man. At least A++. You gotta throw some more pluses on there. I mean, historic. That's all you gotta say. Wow.
He is having one of those monumental seasons. His current stats, his ERA's up a little bit. He gave up a couple of runs. He's at 1.08. Whoopee.
First time he's been at a 1 all season, by the way.
Yeah. It's the first time he's been above 1. That's right.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I believe that he is the sole reason they're in first place. Statistically, maybe not.
Yeah.
But
he's not, but
he's
the biggest
guy
factor.
you guys had on the team, on the staff. He is definitely the heart and soul, I think, of this team, if a pitcher can be.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
He's the reason they're in first place.
No doubt, yeah.
And in another sense, too, especially us media folks, so enamored with the team. And being in a big city, big market like New York, especially for players who maybe didn't grow up in that environment, you can really feel a lot of pressure. But for the Mets, all the talk has been on deGrom. So I feel like that too helps alleviate some of the other players who would have had a hard time, especially the call-ups, adjusting to the league in terms of dealing with so much pressure. Because really, in terms of especially the league-wide media, all eyes are on Jacob deGrom. So you really don't have to worry too much if you have bad games like Trevor May, for example, because again, all eyes are on deGrom and how he's playing. So as long as you don't give away a lead on the game he's pitching, you could have one or two bad days, and they're mostly going to be overlooked because of how good deGrom is.
Okay, so we go from deGrom to the guy right behind him in the rotation, Marcus Stroman.
Yeah, he was on pace, I thought, for an A, but he's been struggling the past couple games. So
his ERA is nice at 2.75. Yeah. His record, again, not getting run support has a lot to do with 6 and 7.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that's not necessarily his fault.
And he's also a contact pitcher, so he doesn't really get statistically. He's unlike deGrom in a lot of ways. deGrom gets a lot of strikeouts, not a lot of walks. Stroman's really trying to draw batters to swing and make ground outs. So he's one of the better pitchers at inducing ground outs. But obviously, when you don't have regulars in the infield, those could turn into hits, etc. So, yeah, and that's been hurting him the past couple games as well. But to take those out of the equation, he's had a fine first half and arguably could have been an all-star.
Okay, so Carlos Carrasco, 60-day IL. Taijuan Walker, who is going to be an all-star because he's filling in for Jacob deGrom. And you got to give him a little bit better in a passing grade, too. 7-3, 2.50. He's earned it. He should have gotten in anyway.
Oh, yeah, agreed. I honestly do believe that, especially over Chapman over the past couple weeks. But he has performed. He's only gotten better throughout the season, which is something that's desperately needed, is 3 reliable starters. And behind deGrom, he's really the best at getting wins for this team. Got a great cutter. He's actually added pitches to his repertoire over the offseason. So he's added off-speed pitches to his already great fastball, and it has worked to near perfection. I mean, this guy deserves an A right behind deGrom, and again, he has performed spectacularly. And he's a guy who had a chip on his shoulder. If you remember, a lot of teams passed up on him on the offseason, including his former team, the rival Braves. So the Mets were the only team interested in him, and it has paid off tremendously. A great signing by Steve Cohen's crew.
So
yeah, I know. I mean, really, Walker just looking very phenomenal, and I just really like that. I remember when I saw him play against the Yankees last week when I was at the Yankee Stadium with my girlfriend, and see how he just continued to keep up that consistency and just really trying to keep himself as part of the top 3. And the fact that he's replacing Jacob deGrom seems pretty fitting to me when deGrom says that he's not going to be participating in that All-Star game, even though I'm sure Mets fans would probably still want him to do that. But taking that personal time with his family, of course, this is nothing serious to be a part of.
Right, and getting rest as well is important. But you're absolutely right. Remember that game, Zach. Walker took a no-hitter to the 5th inning. And it wasn't up until Aaron Judge hit a moonshot off of him that he showed any sign of weakness. So this is a guy, again, who's really got his stuff now. And the fact he's getting better with the banning of substances like Spider Tack goes to show you that he's legit. And I think he's going to have a great second half of the season right behind deGrom. Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second half just going to get that more exciting.
Okay. David Peterson's on the IL right now. He's
probably get an F anyway.
Yeah. Okay, but he's had a rough go of it. 15 starts, 2-6, 5.54. He got knocked around a bit. He's probably the one spot in the rotation that hasn't been that reliable.
Yeah,
but
it reminds me of Mike Pelfrey 10 years ago, where you knew when this guy's pitching, maybe not a game you want to turn on if you're a Mets fan, because more likely than not, it's not going to end up very well.
Yeah, and Net result, D.
I think he's being generous.
Okay, fail him. Well, you're giving him a D because he's on the IL. So limited
he didn't look
ability
great
to
when he was
defend
off it,
himself there.
though. At least with
Yeah.
Kluber, he threw a no-hitter before he was on the IL.
Yeah.
Peterson, his 2 wins, I feel like were hand wrapped for him.
Okay.
But anyway.
Now, you got in the bullpen, Edwin Diaz. 19 saves, pretty reliable. Give him a B?
A-, because he struggled over the past couple seasons. But for him to be virtually perfect in the saves column, I think he's deserving of, at most, an A-.
Okay, another guy you rely on late in the game, Seth Lugo. And another guy who's been fairly solid. He's got 16 appearances, 1 save, but he's a middle inning guy anyway. 2.65 ERA, 21 strikeouts over 17 innings. Again, pretty solid. B.
Yeah. And something interesting to note, too, is his curveball has insane rip. I mean, statistically, he's amongst the best in terms of having that as a quality of a pitch in his arsenal, and just the break on. I mean, this dude, it could start way heads above the batter zone and find a way to sneak into the bottom right corner. I mean, it has been fun to watch this season.
There's a guy back in the 80s by the name of Rod Scurry. Now, never really made that big a name for himself except for one thing. Anytime you asked a player who had the best curveball in the game, they'd say it was him. And then I asked a couple of players from that era years later, I said, whatever happened to him? And they said, everybody said he had great curveball. And he said, oh my God, did he have a curveball? He got caught up in drugs and stuff like that. Never really amounted to much in the majors. But that's not this guy. But it's an idea that
I hope it's
sometimes the best individual skill, so to speak, doesn't always come from one of the star established players.
Agreed. And you need that on championship winning teams. You can't have everyone be a star and everyone win.
Yeah.
The Bucks, as we saw today, have proven that. And the Suns as well earlier in their series, which we'll get to quickly.
Trevor May, another guy, 35 appearances, 2-2, 3.58. And again, somebody's been pretty steady. The bullpen for the Mets has not been bad. Like we said, the pitching in general, obviously you have the best pitcher in baseball. You're one of the best pitchers of his era. But the rest of the staff has really not let you down so much. I mean, yeah, today, okay. But you know what the Mets were doing, and this is a problem they have right now, is that they don't have a steady back of the rotation. And that means they had to run the bullpen out there.
Yeah. And Mays looked better recently, too. He had, coming into today, he had 10 straight scoreless appearances and was able to drop his ERA, which was ballooned up earlier this season.
So he rates a B. Maybe even higher because he's hot right now. Uris Familia. Okay. Didn't he used to be a closer?
He did, and that kind of tells you where he's at.
But I'll tell you this. In his new role as a setup man, another instance of, 28 appearances, and ERA's a little up there, but 4-1. He's vultured some wins. And another B.
Yeah, he's held. He's held. I think that's been important. B might be a little high as well, but he's
B-?
definitely improved. Yeah, B- is fair, I think.
Okay. Miguel Castro, 35 appearances. Actually had to do a couple of spot starts. What was that?
Yeah, I said he's not going to grade as high because he really hasn't adjusted to his spot in the rotation. You know, he's been bounced around as a starter. Then he's been put up as the seventh inning guy. And as we saw today, didn't really work out that well for him. But, you know, he's a guy who's going to need to have a bounce back in the next half of the season.
Aaron Loup, 33 years old, one of the older guys on the staff. Of course, started today, did his job, but only good for 2 innings, unfortunately. 31 games. The one start, of course, we talked about. 3-0, 161. A-.
Yeah, I think that's about fair. He's been real consistent as well. I think right behind Diaz. And you could argue even more than Diaz. He really hasn't had a bad game. Yeah.
Drew Smith, another guy with 19 appearances and a start. And he's picked up a couple of wins himself late in games. And another guy, like I said, not too many letdowns here in this lineup. And even Nick Tropiano is included on the 40-man, even though he's back down to the minors again. And even Tropiano looked halfway decent in his most recent outing over the weekend.
Yeah.
So he's going to be coming up at some point. So there you go. The Mets are first-place ball club, but the Mets, I still think, largely because of their hitting deficiencies and the injuries they've had early in the season, are an underachieving first-place club. And if they get their lineup together and it finds its groove, I think, especially with the Braves treading water and losing Acuna, the Nationals,
big loss.
kind of like the Yankees, 1 step forward, 2 step back.
Yep.
I think the Mets, it's their division to lose.
No, I agree. And
Yeah,
in a sense,
they're
because of all
more complete right now.
Agreed. And because of all the injuries, they've been overachieving in spite of losing so many players. But you're right. With the lineup in place now, you expected better numbers from them for sure. 47-40 is nice, but this is a team that could easily be 10, 15 games above 500. The potential's there. They have a great record at home, 28-14. I think their problem is playing on the road. They've been 19-26. So I think it's going to be key for them to really lock in on road stretches, which is hard enough already with the talent they're facing. But even so, it's going to be key come playoff time. And they got lengthy road stretches to secure the top spot in their division.
Well, that's one thing, the challenge you're going to face. Let's take a look at their schedule coming out of the break, because we did the same thing with the Yankees. And coming out, they don't have a lot to worry about because they've got 3 more in Pittsburgh coming out of the break. Then they go to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati is important because Cincinnati is in contention in both the Central and the wild card.
Which now also depended earlier this season. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Then home against the Blue Jays, 5 against the Braves because there's a doubleheader open up the 4-game series. And then they finish out the month home against the Reds. Shouldn't be too hard for them. The Yankees have a much more challenging schedule coming out of the break. This Agreed. They should be able to handle.
Agreed. And they've been overachieving in my eyes in terms of winning series. Not even so much more splitting, but straight up winning series. So you keep that up, keep taking 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4. That first place is all but yours.
So we have a lot to look forward to coming out of the break. Of course, when we join you this time next week, second half will be underway. And I hope we have good things to say about both teams. I think we will about the Mets, and I've got my fingers crossed about the Yankees because despite today's loss, they did have a good road trip. They took 2 out of 3. No, they couldn't sweep the Mariners. No, they couldn't sweep the Astros. But by and large, on balance, they had a nice bounce back. and it's there for them. It's served them on a silver platter. The teams you're chasing are the teams you're facing, and if you beat up on them good enough, you'll be right back in it. And this, we'll see what this team's made out of, and what this team's going to be made out of at the end of the month. So, guys, we have reached midnight, and that means time to call it a night. Time to call it a week here on the sports section. Many thanks to Riley Craig, our guest, Mike Anderson, for handling that interview. Ken Furman and Zach Wilson, I'm Matt Mankiewicz. And we shall see you next week with some good news. Oh, we always have good news. At least when it concerns the Seawolves. This is WUSB Stony Brook. Good night, everybody.